Hey fellow students, it's me, Mario. It's been a long time since my last video. Well, I got some news. I got a baby. It's my firstborn. Her name's Emma, and I'm pretty happy to be father. And I also had some other health issues which forced me in the hospital for 2 weeks or so, and then I needed to recover, so unfortunately a long time passed since my last video. But I mean, the morale is up, I'm happy to be here again, and I decided to treat you all with another strategy video that hopefully will be well liked by all of you, because one thing that actually got me happy in the last 2 months or so that were so troublesome was that a lot of people kept asking me to make more videos and kept asking me how was I doing, and they also subscribed to the channel even though I didn't post out any new videos, so I'm pretty happy with that. Today I'm gonna talk about Darwin's Journey, which is a game made by two Italian designers, Nestore Mengone and Simone Luciani, which are among the best designers in the world, in my opinion. At least, well, Luciani is well known for Barrage, which is one of my favorite games, but they also made together Newton, which is a game that is like a multi-solitaire game, which I actually appreciate quite a bit. I play it solo mostly, but I do like it quite a bit. So in Darwin's Journey, as always, I will assume you are all familiar with the rules, so I will just stick with strategy. Darwin's Journey doesn't reinvent the wheel. It's just another worker placement game with some limitation and some new twists to it. The main one is that you can upgrade your students using waxes, so you can specialize them. But the cool thing is that we are back to a Euro which is incredibly tight while still being a game that lets you combo sometimes, so it can be really good at satisfying you, but it also feels like you need to fight against the other players. You're not just playing your own, you need to fight against the other players for the best actions. By the way, if you see me sweating, it's because here in Italy we had a heat wave. It's 40 degrees outside and it's crazy hot, so I might be sweating quite a bit during this video. Bear with me and don't judge me. So, the first thing I'm gonna ask myself when I start approaching a new Euro game is, how do I build an engine? I played this game more than 30 or 40 times even now, and I have a pretty good idea at how to handle my games. All my games have been 3 or 4 players, as always. I played it once at 2P. I did like it, but I'm not in love with 2P in general. So how do we build an engine? We build an engine by specializing our students, by taking waxes, and we build an engine by taking objectives that will make us better at doing something. Specializing our students is not only a way to build an engine, but it's also a way to take a strategic path. Like if I take a lot of green waxes, I'm going to probably want to unlock the extra exploration action or use the ones that somebody else has unlocked and go for exploring quite a bit. If I specialize in trying to hit one of these actions, I would probably try to take it at least twice. But it's also a good way to be more versatile. You don't need to just specialize, you can also be a bit more versatile so that the students that you have left can be used for different purposes. And also, very important are your starting crew cards. Starting crew cards will give you some direction in how you're gonna fill the waxes in your student. In my opinion, it's very possible to win even without flipping all of them, pretty easily actually. So, and some of them are really powerful, as some of them are just meh, but all of them can be good in certain situations, so keep that in mind. So, building an engine thanks to upgrading your students is strong and is relatively easy to do if you can take the academy action, but you also have to take a look at the objectives. Like in this game, it's probably very good to upgrade your students. There are 3 end of round objectives rewarding waxes, so getting more waxes is good. So getting waxes is good for 2 reasons, once again. One is because having a silver or a gold student will make your action incredibly more powerful, and 2, you're going to be more versatile. You'll be able to get to the actions unlocked and to the new special actions that might be unlocked during the game. A short word, I'm going to have a lot of tips during this game, because talking about strategy overall is something I can do, but I think in this game tactic is really important, and some tips might be good. All the special actions can be good, but they shouldn't be the central part of your gameplay. So the meat of the game is going to be taking these 4 actions and delivering species most of the time. You will take these actions like twice during the game if you focus, maybe thrice, but normally it's just less than that, honestly. There are some exceptions, of course, but most of the time these actions are like a good take once per game for sure, maybe twice. They shouldn't be like the linchpin of your overall strategy, in my opinion. The second way to build your engine is by fulfilling objectives. There are 2 rows of objectives, the silver ones and the gold ones, and there are some particular spots I would like you to focus on for the engine, and they are this spot, this one here, and this one here mainly. Sorry, this one here too. This one is easy. This one will let you take waxes for free when you take an academy actions from these 3 rows. It gives you incredibly big freedom in choosing which waxes to put on your students. You still have to pay the cost for these ones, but actually if you take an upgraded academy action, you can use the discount on placing waxes on your students instead of using the discount on taking waxes. So this action is most of the time the first silver objective you're going to unlock if it's early enough in the game. Then there are these 3. This one is probably another very popular one at the beginning of the game. It will detract 1 coin from the cost that you have to pay when sharing a book page with another player. It's really good because it basically halves what you have to pay, and coins are very, very, very tight in this game. It's also the most general one. Like, you don't really need a big plan to make it work. It just works in every game. This one is the extra meeple, and of course the extra meeple is strong, is a big allure in every single worker placement game I've ever heard of. Having an extra meeple is always good, but it does cost you 5 coins, and 5 coins are really a lot. So early on in the game, it's of course very good if you can unlock it, but be careful, because if you find yourself stuck without coins, the other players can actually outmaneuver you. This is something that Darwin's Journey let players do a lot. Outmaneuver your opponents. Depending on if they're in a tight spot, you can take an action that is good for you and that also denies them something. And spending 5 coins in the early game can be actually very risky. It's also very strong, of course, if you can take it. The extra meeple, remember that it doesn't have any wax, so it can work only with the temporary waxes, or actually what you're gonna use it most for is taking objectives, contesting the first player, delivering species to the museum, and unlocking lenses. Since all these actions don't require any wax. Or you can get a purple wax. This is actually a tricky one because 3 coins is just 2 coins less than the extra meeple. So you actually really need this wax to pull a lot of weight for it to be able to contest this other unlock. It can be really good because it doesn't cost any coins to upgrade a student to the gold state. This is actually the reason I use it the most. Or it can also be really useful to take an action that you really need to take while also fulfilling one of your crew cards. So it can be really good. It's just more situational than the other 3 ones. Actually, the extra meeple is situational, but it's normally stronger than the purple wax. Another really good action you can take with objectives is just stealing 1 species. This is not for the engine, but this is a really cool mechanism to stun a bit the player who's in the lead or who's apparently in the lead, actually. Other objectives are good at scoring, these 3 here, and this one is also good for scoring in another way. It makes it so that scoring at the end of the round is going to be easier. In my opinion, this one is honestly pretty trash. It's possible sometimes to play a game without moving the boat at all, because you're able to get an extra student on the second or third island, and sometimes you can catch up with a sheep, which makes it so that this objective doesn't really pull much weight. So I'm not really in love with this objective, honestly. This one just repeats 1/10. Tenths are good, but it's just like a one-off bonus like this one. And this one is just for scoring. It helps you score more from the Theory of Evolution track, or the book track, as we're probably going to call it, to make it quicker. Now, so these are the two main ways you're going to build an engine. And a third way you can play, I'm telling this because people get stuck sometimes in this game thinking that if they don't get waxes, they're gonna lose, or if they don't fulfill objectives, they're gonna lose, or if they don't deliver species, which is the third biggest thing you're gonna do in the game, they're gonna lose. Actually, these three things can be mixed and matched, and you have to position yourself at the table so that you find the lane that is open to you. So sometimes it's open for you to take a lot of waxes, sometimes it's good for you to take objectives. So basically you have to see what your opponents are doing and find what is better for you. This is the most difficult thing to navigate through in Darwin's journey, and the reason because of which the game is really tactical in its nature and so cutthroat, in my opinion. So the second thing we have to ask ourselves is, of course, how do we score in this game? And in this game we score in basically three main ways, or four, depending on how you think the player board should be judged. The first one is easy, like in Barrage, in Terra Mystica, and in many other games. You're gonna score depending on how much you've done well for one of the end of round objectives. These ones are really going to dictate how the game is going to look like, especially some complicated ones like the lenses, the unlocked lenses, or the unlocked tents. These two will really change what the games will look like, because unlocking lenses is very expensive, so probably you will have to deliver more species instead of delivering two of them at once. I'm just giving you some examples to show you how the objectives can really change the texture of a game. Of course, if you have a lot of waxes, you should expect a big fight to happen on the Academy action overall. But just in general, remember that these 5 objectives are really important, and as in Barrage or in Terra Mystica, you don't need to hit them all hard, because you can also skip some of the early ones if you really want to hit the later ones harder, depending on how you move the boat, or you can actually be a bit behind on the boat, score the first 2 ones, then catch up later on. There are so many possibilities, and it's always a good feeling. They should determine how you approach the game strategically. So I will need pickaxes by the end of the game. I will need yellow waxes, which normally are probably the worst kind of wax in my opinion, and you will need a lot of them for the 4th scoring round. So they should inform how you play a game a lot. Then the second way is, as we've been talking about, objectives. Objectives can really score you quite a bit of points, and already starting from the 3rd round you should probably start focusing on getting these 2 boats. These 2 boats really gives you 70 points in 2 objectives, which is really a lot, and a lot of the objectives in the late game are basically already fulfilled when they come out, so they become a really high priority. Even though, again, a tip on taking objectives, the action to take an objective is actually pretty good in the early game, because getting 2 coins is actually very beneficial early on, and fulfilling one of the objectives in the early game is incredibly powerful, hence why starting as a 4th or the 3rd player, you should have a leg upon completing them over the other opponents, even though starting, of course, being the starting players means that you have free reign on all the actions. But the main way you should try to get objectives later on is having them tackled on other actions, like placing a tent here will give you an objective. There are a lot of other spots on the map which gives you objectives, so you shouldn't really take this objective action a lot late in the game. Again, pro tip, or Mario's tip, I would say. Then the last way to score Oh, actually, I'm still talking about objectives and the board. You can score from your students. Having a golden students means that you're going to get 10 points, which is really a lot. In most games, you should at least try to get one golden student, regardless of if you focused on waxes or not. One golden student will let you unlock a crew card in some way, or at least it should, and it will give you a lot of points. So at least one golden student should be your aim. In some games you can get all three of them to the golden status. Golden students are of course good economy-wise and are good scoring-wise, so they are just very, very, very strong. It's also one other tip on the golden and silver students especially, is that once you get one of them, you actually have a big leg upon the opponents unless they also got a silver or a golden one. So basically, if you're the first one to get them, it's going to be pretty good for you because some actions are going to be consistently better for you. And especially I'm talking about the exploration action and the academy actions. They are both going to be incredibly good for you when you have a golden student. So keep that in mind. The last way to score is from the theory of evolution track. Once again, the theory of evolution track will change a lot depending on the round bonuses. Like here, there is only one rewarding species, so maybe you will not reach a high number of books. I could expect something between 8 or 10 books, depending on how much the player will invest in this area. But sometimes you can even reach bigger multipliers because the whole board will be completely full, and at that point it's going to be very rewarding for you to get a high multiplier. It depends a lot. Some players will specialize on this track just because they were able to deliver more species in the late game. Delivering species in the early game is mostly an economic thing, just because you're gonna get coins out of it, and coins will help you a lot in having freedom in your action and in letting you buy more waxes and yada yada. But later on in the game, the player who can catch up on the theory evolution track is going to have the biggest multiplier, and also he's going to have the biggest incentive to fill up the whole board. So remember that if you find yourself filling up the species museum late in the game, you also have the biggest incentive to try to find other ways to jump up your books just by taking actions that will give you book points, like this one or this one. There are other ways to move yourself on this track. These are also good if you're behind and you see somebody really pushing hard on this track. In my opinion, everybody should fight a bit on this track because it's a big source of points, so ignoring it all, it's a bad thing to do. But if you're like 2 multipliers behind and you have like more golden students or more objective fulfilled, then it's also fine, of course. There is actually another way to get points, which is just by taking action that give you point. Normally you try to reach the end of some islands or the end of the boat track. They are both really good at scoring, especially if you have a golden student that will have to pick 2 rewards. So with the exploration is always good. With the boat, in my opinion, a golden student used on the boat is only good when you're approaching the end of the track. Because before that point, it's really, really, really hard to pick up two rewards at the same time. Because let's talk about actions a bit, then I will try to wrap up this video because it's probably already quite long. Actions are not made the same. Some actions are consistently good throughout the game, some other actions are good every now and then. Some other actions have breaking points after which they become to be very, very good, and some other actions are just meh. So, the exploration track first, the exploration action first. Exploration action is just always good. You will see a lot of people piling up meeples on this book, especially just because you always get a reward, basically. Everywhere you stop, you're going to get something. It's also the main way to place down tents, and tents are really good to get extra actions. I would advise trying to unlock tents to get extra actions. It's also the main way to get species. It's just a very good way to play the game, you shouldn't let anybody roam freely on an island. Like the first one should always be contested by pretty much all players, and the second and third one, depending on how fast somebody moved on the boat. The main allure is exactly being the only one to have an explorer here, because if you're the only one to have an explorer on an island, you have a lot of freedom in which species you can get and in which rewards you can get, while when you're on the first island, you're going to be contested every time, and if you're not, you're probably going to win. Like honestly, if you're not contested on an island, that's a recipe for disaster for the other players. So exploration is always good. A very usual starting sequence that can happen, again, it can happen also something different as we're going to see with Academy, is that somebody explores to get a species, somebody navigates to get a species, somebody else will unlock a lens on exploration to take 3 steps and immediately place down a tent that will let place down 2 stamps, sorry, on envelopes. So exploration is just a good option overall, and having a silver student is good because the rewards are better close to the end of the track, and having a golden student is incredibly good because you can pick up 2 rewards and you're always going to be able to pick up 2 rewards. Let's go on to the navigation action. Navigation action is actually a bit weird. It's more like a necessary evil than a linchpin of your strategy by itself. You need to move your boat in, I would say, 90% of the games to be able to catch up with the beagle and score well on the end of round bonuses. But the rewards on the navigation track are locked behind thresholds, so you will not get anything if you like move your boat twice and just go here. You will literally gain nothing other than 1 more points multiplied by the times you score this bonus. So you will just be scoring points on the first round, which is of course not really good. So you will need to tailor that action to try to hit the thresholds that will give you good bonuses. That's something you should try to strive for. What I try to do a lot is trying to get both movements by other means, like by placing tents, for example. This tent, if I'm not mistaken, gives you 2 steps too, and this pile of stamps too. So I will try to find a lot of ways to move the boat that doesn't require the action itself, which is also the reason these 2 actions don't get unlocked that often, while in pretty much every game you will see both of these ones being unlocked. So it depends quite a bit, and the same can be said actually. The silver student can give you some decent versatility, of course, but the gold one, in my opinion, to really use a gold one on the navigation action, you really need to be like here to take 1, 2, 3 steps, or like here to take 1, 2, 3, 4 steps, which is even harder, or just be close to the end of the round. So just use it to score a lot of points, because you can get like 5 plus 8 points. That's 13 in one action. It's very good. So navigation action is a necessary evil. It's not an action you will see players fight for a lot. At least that's my experience. The envelope action or stamp action or what? I don't know how it is called. Correspondence action. It's a good one to tailor up your game a bit towards something. But again, it's not an action you will see players fight a lot for. It's also quite limited. Even if you get the silver student, it's not easy to exploit it, and placing down more stamps is not always good. So again, these 2 upgrade actions are unlocked sometimes, but not always. Placing stamps is of course better if you're later in turn order most of the time, because you can manipulate the majorities. The thing with stamps is they can be incredibly powerful, of course, because if you unlock stamps, you're also gonna get a free action on top of the full action that you're actually going to take on one of these spots. The problem being is that you're going to take this action at the end of the round, and depending on the new turn order. So to be sure that you're going to get something good taking a stamp action, you both need to be late in turn order to be able to, again, manipulate the majorities, and one of the first ones on the next turn order, which is again not an easy feat, because sometimes you place your envelopes here, but maybe there is no more cheap waxes to be taken or useful waxes for you, so it's not like taking this action, it's actually way worse. Or sometimes you want to explore to really hit a bonus, and somebody else will explore before you, for example. So it's complicated. It's a bit complicated. It's not bad actually. In some games, when you're rewarded by having stamps unlocked, or if you have the objective that requires you to have stamps unlocked, this one for example, you can go straight up for a lot of stamps. And the good thing is that if you're playing with experienced players, probably you won't have too much fight for them. But it shouldn't be your main action, in my opinion, and the yellow waxes are among the worst ones to get early on, in my opinion. Then we have the Academy actions, which is the other king action. So if you're in doubt on which waxes are better, at least in the early game, the red ones and the green ones are, in my opinion, way better than the other ones, unless you really strive to get an action. Like this one is an incredibly good action, and this one too. So if you can get this kind of waxes before everybody else, you will have a very strong action free for you. That said, the Academy action is incredibly powerful, but not the first step actually. This is the only action where the second step is literally double than the first one. Like with exploration, you move one more step, but they're just getting better rewards. You're not getting double the rewards you can take here. Same with the ship, not the sheep, and same with the envelope actions. So unlocking this lens is actually very powerful. Anybody who unlocks it will see it used every single turn, every single round by somebody else, so or by himself if he's so lucky. So he will get a lot of waxes. So the first action, the second one, very powerful. The third one, very powerful to save you some coins, but the second one is really incredibly good. The biggest gap in power between action is between the first Academy and the second Academy action. Also, getting a student is incredibly powerful. Once again, for the same reason, a silver student will give you one more envelope, which is totally insane. The gold one is also very good because it will discount one for each wax, but it's not as powerful as the silver one. Like again, the biggest jump or gap in power are between a student and a silver student here. So the Academy action is really important in most of the games, once again, because it's going to build your engine and give you freedom in choosing the actions. Let's briefly talk about the envelopes. They can really change how you play your game. This one is very powerful. In my opinion, the most powerful one is the one that will let you move the boat, because it's very hard to go wrong with that. If you move twice, you're going to move twice regardless. You're not striving to get, most of the time at least, you're not striving to get some bonus, and it's very hard for other people to fight you for some of these goals, because boats are going to be really different positions, while a lot of the times explorers are like crumpled up in one area of the map, so jumping each other is really important and somebody can steal the bonus that you want. This one is also very good if you can still snag good waxes. If people are really fighting for waxes, like if this lens was unlocked on the first round, it may be iffy, especially later on. This one is very good at the beginning of the game, and then it drops off immediately, while the opposite can be saved for the victory points one. I won't talk too much about these actions. Some of them are incredibly good. This one is very good. These two are very good. Once again, if you can get them, this one can also be very good in the early game. If you can get them, if you can get the necessary waxes before anybody else, that's pretty good for you. You're gonna have free reign on them. Again, you will probably take once or twice, but they're incredibly powerful at jumping you ahead on the economy. Delivering species should be done almost every time, 2 at a time. The 3 coins are normally worth it, and you're going to gain coins, especially early in the game. But once again, you might have some reasons to deliver one species only. Maybe somebody else got the same species and you want to deliver it before them, or maybe you just want a lot of coins because you need to unlock a lot of lenses, or maybe you've unlocked the 5th student and you really need coins. So it's really possible to deliver it once, but normally I would say that your plan should be to deliver there twice. This action is very good late in the game to study species if there are some late game species that you need for scoring. So it's basically there only for scoring. I know that it can be used for objectives, but in my opinion, it's a bit of a waste if you take this action just to fulfill an objective. Unless it's like the 5th student and you really need it. I would say that's basically it. This video has already run pretty long. I love this game. I've been playing it quite a bit. My playgroup loves it. It runs a bit long just because every action should be pondered quite a bit. But the good thing, and the thing that I love about this game, is that you should stop and think about your actions, not because you have to find the best one for yourself only, at least, but because you have to focus on what the other players are doing and you have to stop them, especially at the start. The start of this game is really like chess. You cannot get anybody run away with the games. In our first few games, let's talk about some like newbie traps you might be stuck onto. It happened to us that somebody was able on the first round, on the first few games of course, to both get 2 steps here and 2 steps here, get 2 species and deliver them. That was an incredibly good turn for them. It was possible for somebody to unlock the Academy action and then take the Academy action on the same round by getting an objective to gain coins or being first player or something. And that shouldn't be allowed. You should definitely use your temporary knowledge token to snag this action. It's that good. So some actions should be contested. Getting to the first ant is again almost always a good action if you can pull it off. It's basically a movement action that will place you further on the island, which helps a lot in manipulating your movement and getting good points and good species, and it gives you a free deliverance. It's not deliverance, correspondence action. Taking the corresponding action early on is, in my opinion, pretty much always bad. Taking it as the first action just because the other diaries are full and you don't want to spend coins is, in my opinion, not a good action. So just try not to fall into these traps. I can't explain every possible way a first round should play out, but by getting a feel for this game, you will see that the first round is incredibly important in this game because it's so snowbally, and trying not to let anybody run away with the game on the first round is really important. It's something that happens in Barrage in some way too, and it's something that I actually like. I really like that the first actions are really important for the game. I know that some players don't love that you can feel out of the game already on the first round, but to me that's a sign of a good game if you can counter, if there is a counterplay to what the leading player might do. So that's it. I love this game. I think it's a gem. I don't think it's a masterpiece like Barrage just because it's like a worker placement game. It's not like that innovative. I mean, Barrage is also a worker placement game, but it's also like a grid building game. Not a grid. How do you call it in English? I don't know. You're just building your connections, basically. You're building a web of things that interact with each other. While in this game is a bit more traditional. It's still very good because it's cutthroat. Every action is very significant and important, and it's very possible to interact a lot with the other players. So that's all you need to know about Darwin's Journey. One last thing I'm gonna say today is that I was able to get a new RAM stick for my PC, so I was able to upgrade it a bit. I wasn't able to stream or record videos before because my laptop is getting old and I didn't honestly want to invest like 800 euros in a big upgrade, given that my PC works pretty well for everything other than recording videos. So it was hard for me to justify that expense, having a newborn baby. But I'm happy that I got this drumstick, and it should be enough. We'll see if the quality is good enough. Alright, well, I hope you enjoyed the video, and see you next time. Bye bye. Myra's out.